Welcome to the Empowered Mothers Network podcast, where we're supporting mothers to be the best version of themselves. I'm Sarah, and this is episode 24, and this episode is called Reclaiming Yourself, Finding Your Identity Beyond Motherhood. So in this episode, we're talking about motherhood and identity again, so the idea of rediscovering yourself amid what can be the actual chaos of parenting, particularly school-age children. So I've written quite a few blog posts before on the Empowered Mothers Network website about motherhood and identity and what we often face after we have children, which is this kind of loss of identity of who we are. We can get quite lost, and sometimes it can take some time to come out the other side and kind of rediscover who we are now, who we are as a mother. So I've touched quite a lot in that in the blog posts that are on the website, because I was writing those at the time of being a mother of babies at the time. So a lot of that content is geared quite towards either mums that are about to become mums for the first time, or mums of very, very young children. So this podcast episode is kind of looking at the same topic, but more from a slant of those of us who now have school-age children, whether that's primary or secondary school. Obviously, there's big differences in our children's lives at between those 2 points. But as a parent of school-age children in general, we are often under the same pressures and constraints, particularly around things like time management, and having enough time and energy to really kind of connect with ourselves. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we can reconnect with our passions, and let go of the guilt as well around doing that, because that is often a really common theme that we've had and that I've found talking to other mums, is the amount of guilt that there is for wanting to do something for yourself. And just generally, being okay with you embracing your personal growth journey, and, not trying to put excuses in the way or shy away from that, or just too much put other people's needs before your own. So yeah, we're going to be talking about reclaiming your identity as a mother and as an individual as well. Remembering that you aren't just such and such as mum. I think firstly we have to acknowledge the daily challenges that we all face as mothers, and in this case of this podcast, particularly as mothers of school-aged children, and how easy it is to lose yourself in motherhood, essentially. So some of us will have got to different places where I've talked earlier about when we find our identity after we've had a baby. This episode is aimed at those of us who are further along, and a lot of us will have kind of, to some degree or another, found our new footing now, our new identity as mothers. For some people, it can come with quite clarity as they work through it through the years, and for some people, it's still not as clear, and it can really take a long time. Again, this is because we can get lost in just the act, the job, the role of motherhood, because there are so many things on the daily that can just fill us up. So particularly as mother of school-age children now, and I found this now that all three of mine are now in the school system to some degree or another, is like the amount of school child admin there is, like after school clubs, trips, birthday parties, there's just tons, and I know it gets worse as they get older. I've not got to the secondary school stage just yet, but yeah, there's so many sort of child admin type tasks that kind of get lumped, usually predominantly to the mother, not always, but predominantly that is frequently happens in your average household. So you've got all the sort of children's admin and lives and social lives, and then you've got your own life where you at some degree now many of us are either back into our careers or the jobs we had before, or we've got new jobs, or we've started businesses up. Something's going on that side of things, because we're still at a point in our lives where we are generally required to do some work or job for recompense. Again, I'm kind of generalizing here, because I can't go into everybody's unique specific situation, but just thinking about a lot of the pressures that most mums face at the moment. So if you just take a look around, like online shopping, and look at planners for mums, there are now tons. I've been looking at this because I'm getting to the point now where a notepad is not cutting it anymore, and I feel like I do need a full-on planner. And there are many planners out there now just geared towards mums, and that is because there is so much going on that we need to write it down. There are so many plates to juggle, and so with all these different tasks and things every day going on, our lives get so just busy, and sometimes it can get to the point where they're almost busy for the sake of being busy at some points. And we just tend to, it's so easy to get lost in that sort of persona of being the busy, overworked mum. Because I think society puts it up on a pedestal to a degree now. You can have it all as a mum, or you can have it all as a woman. Has been marketed to us for decades now, that we can have the kids, the house, the career, the amazing social life. And again, as I've talked about in Spinning Plates episode, we're just spreading ourselves too thin, basically. And having it all just comes at a massive cost to our own self. So then it becomes we have it all apart from our own selves, and we don't have that connection with ourselves. And if we feel disconnected from who we are as a person beyond just being mum, or insert child names here, mum, it takes quite an emotional toll on us, really, if we're not really connected with who we are. We're not in our own power, we're not connecting with our own wisdom. And it does take time and space to do this work. And sometimes it can be that we have to unpick things, and it can be messy, and that is in itself, sometimes it is difficult in our work to do, and therefore it does become kind of easier to avoid doing that in a work if it's difficult. We as mums, we've literally got so many reasons and maybe excuses of why we can't do that, because there's always somebody else's needs that we can put first, and always something to be done that we can kind of overwrite that with and say, well, we've not got time to do this kind of work because we've got all this other stuff going on, which is a really good kind of shroud for not stepping into doing that often difficult inner work. So why does reclaiming your identity matter anyway? Why should we try and reconnect with our own identity as an individual beyond just the coat, the shroud, the identity of mother? I think the biggest effect that we don't necessarily always take into consideration about reconnecting, whatever you want to call it, reconnecting with your true self, reconnecting with your inner self, stepping into your own power, becoming an empowered version of yourself, connecting with your own identity. These are all sort of different terms and words that we can use to describe the same thing, which, once you're really working on and pursuing, you will feel that kind of emotionally and in the wisdom of your own body often as well. The reason why it's important to do this is because reconnecting with your true self, it doesn't just benefit you. Of course, it benefits you in unspeakable ways, but there's also that ripple effect. So, and I found this in my own life as well, if you are able to do this inner work and really find out who you are now, connect with your inner self, whatever you want to call it, it starts rippling out. So you become more confident in yourself, you become more balanced, you may become less stressed in that because you're more in your own centre, you're more in your own power, you know who you are. You're finding that the curveballs that life throws at you, you're maybe finding easier to deal with. Things might not seem as if they're kind of piling up so much for you anymore. You might find just that these daily day-to-day demands of life are a little bit easier to deal with in some way. And I think if we get to that place and we feel maybe less stressed, more calm, more at peace with ourselves, that then ripples out. And the way we then treat other people, especially those closest to us, is then altered. We might have, find that we have more compassion, more kindness. We're able to give our children more space in terms of a container to listen and be present with them. So the more we can sort of have this self-awareness about ourselves, and the more we can step into feeling more and more fulfilled in our own life as the person that we are beyond just a mother, the more it will have that ripple effect, and those closest to us will also benefit from it. And then, of course, you're modelling that example to your own children as well. So in the hope that as they get older, they will also realise, maybe not consciously realise, but they will have that model that finding your own self and really being in touch with your own identity beyond just being robot mum is really important and fulfilling for the entire family. So as I mentioned earlier, the work to do this, to connect with yourself, to kind of reclaim your own identity as your own self, is often messy work and is often difficult work, and it's inner work. It's not something, again, that we can really do something tangible, action orientated, and say, look, I have produced this, because it's all inner work. So that you might not necessarily realise for a long time that you've started the work, or even that you've progressed particularly with the work, until maybe a situation will just make you step back and say, oh, okay, I've handled that differently to how I did in the past, or I feel differently about this now, or I don't want to have this part of my life anymore, I want to let go of that. It's kind of when we get to those points in our lives, we realise that maybe actually we have been doing this work and that it is paying dividends. So I'm going to go over a few kind of practical steps, but I don't feel that they're necessarily as important as really just the intention to go onto this path, the intention to start, connecting with your own identity and your own power and becoming empowered. It really starts just simply with the intention to do so, and to the intention to be the best version of yourself. And once you kind of really have that intention really strongly, you start to think about it, you start to embody it, things start appearing in your life practically that enable you to continue down that road and enable you to continue to reinforce that intention. So I think the most important things here are, set the intention first, and then also as you go along, you will get the inner nudges of where to go next. So really listening to your intuition and learning to trust that. So for some of us, we may already be quite in tune with our own intuition and, already know that we can trust that, and we already sort of tend to listen to it. And for some other people, it might be more of a process to do that first, and really kind of trust our own inner wisdom above that of stuff that's coming at us from externally. Because we get bombarded so much now, and there's so many different things that really are engineered to kind of make us trust the external more than the internal. And we can go down the next conversation of why is that, as particularly as women, why is that we are, things are seemingly quite engineered now to distract our attention away from our inner wisdom. But we won't go into that here. I'm sure that'll be another podcast episode. So intention, intuition, and practically giving yourself time and space to do this work. And that is the hardest part of it, because you do need a certain amount of, if you're doing inner work and going inwards and connecting with yourself, you do need a certain amount of time to yourself, or maybe in a group gathering with other like-minded people. So that will look like time and space away from the family and parenting and partnering. It will look like time and space away from that situation, and that's where a lot of us struggle. I think, there's so much popularity now in this whole wellness industry for things like retreats and escapes, and of course all of us think they look fantastic and we'd love to go on them, and it's not necessarily that we can't afford to go on them. It might also be that we don't have the time to go on. It's going to be who's going to look after the kids, who's going to do this, I can't get time off work, I've not got enough holidays, this, that and the other. So it's finding the time and the space, which can be really challenging when you have school-aged children as well. I know it's very challenging when you've got young children. But the hope is for most of us that as our children do get older, we do get a little bit more in terms of time and space that we can devote just to ourselves. It still might be a small amount, but it has the potential there to increase. I know in my own situation, it was when my children got old enough to kind of go to playgroup and then, say, nursery, there was a little bit of time each week suddenly where they were out of the house. And yeah, there's some of them overlapped, with some of them would go out to nursery and then I had another baby, so there was one at home. But you will get, you get to a point eventually where they are all out of the house, so there is some pocket of time there in my own case. So it's just looking at where in your life could you just carve out a little bit of time and space for yourself, really, just away from being mum. And you will undoubtedly need support in that. You will need help. So whether you have a partner that you can spread the load with, or you have family members that you use for childcare, or whether you have to rely on paid childcare, but you will need some kind of support system in place, some other people supporting you in terms of looking after maybe your family or other responsibilities while you have this time for yourself. And that is often where the guilt creeps in taking that time, because you're then reliant on somebody else, and we're just taught so much now in this culture, to be self-sufficient and do everything ourselves. And that idea of giving something over, a responsibility of yours over to somebody else and saying, can you help me carry this load because I need to go and work, honestly, because I need to go and work on myself and my inner growth. It seems like we shouldn't be doing that, and such a thing to feel guilty about. So that is a massive, massive barrier that a lot of us have to overcome. We may even be able to carve out this time and space, but think, it gets filled with something else because something else is more important to us, or it might produce more tangible results that we can see, so we tend to prioritize and focus on that. So I know how difficult it is from my own experience of really being able to say, right, I'm going to carve out this time for me and take it for myself. And as I say, finding people to share the load with is really important. And it can be that this guilt's so consuming to be able to move forward in reclaiming your own identity. Again, even if you've got all your kind of ducks in a row and you understand why you want to really connect with your own power and all the benefits it'll bring, and you potentially could make the time and space, but the guilt is really often the thing holding us back. So that can be where, again, going into it not just on your own can be really helpful and useful. If you can, again, as I just mentioned about things like retreats, which are now gaining in popularity, if you kind of carve out that time and space for yourself, and maybe you enter into that with other people who are going through the same process, and then you can all kind of work on that together. So you'll all be going through similar emotions. You're probably all feeling some degree of guilt for taking this time out for yourself, and you can probably realise that it's there easier when everyone's in kind of the same boat, and then sit with that and maybe work through that as well as a group. That can be quite a powerful alchemical experience. So yeah, finding a group of like-minded people to move through it is really important. Finding a tribe, and that's part of what we're doing at Empowers Mothers Network is kind of getting mums together to support each other, so we're all moving through these similar journeys together, and we can really support each other in that, and break through these barriers as well that we have, which are often limiting beliefs, and things we've been missold, growing up in our lives. So really to sort of break through those barriers together and create our best lives and best versions of ourselves. But yeah, to rediscover yourself beyond that basic framework I just mentioned of intuition, intention, intuition, and having the time, setting the time and space, or you could call it making a container for this inner work to be carried out. Some practical things are, connect. The most important thing as well is to connect with those emotions, the higher emotions. So like love, joy, peace, things like that. So we're looking about things that inspire those kind of emotions in us. So, you might look for things that, bring you joy, that you enjoy doing. So either hobbies, passions, career aspirations, things like that. So if you, again, are feeling guilty on time and what you are producing out into the world, you might start small with putting a little bit of time away just to focus on a hobby that you enjoy doing, and taking a little bit of time out for that. And then in that case, you've often got something tangible that you're producing because it's a hobby. You'll have something tangible that you'll have produced, so that can allay that a little bit. Can't carry on that as like a trajectory long term, because the work will get deeper, but it could be a good sort of first step into allowing yourself to take that. If you're really up against allowing yourself to take time and space for yourself, that could be quite a good first step to kind of dip your toe into the water. You might try something new, so like a new class or a workshop or a new creative project, but something that you've not done before. So something that maybe, you're obviously something that you're kind of interested in and want to do, but something that maybe as well might push your boundaries a little bit would be really good. So I have situations in my own life where it's like I want to do something, but at the same time I can feel that resistance, and if it involves like going out the house and going somewhere else and doing something, I will have every excuse in the book that I don't need to go out and do that. So that can be something where you sort of have that push-pull dynamic with something where you kind of know deep down intuitively that it will be good for you and it will light you up and you will get something out of it. But at the same time, you've kind of got to overcome that resistance of just, that inner resistance of wanting to maintain the status quo and not liking change. Those sort of situations can be really good for helping you to develop and helping you find yourself. And finally, setting aside some like guilt-free time for just little pockets of time. Again, they don't have to take too long. 10 minutes is always a really good one because you can get a fair bit done in 10 minutes, but it's not too long out of your day. So 10 minutes for, say, reflection, journaling, a bit of meditation, something again along those lines that just kind of can help you press the reset button, or can help you connect with your inner world. Because as mums, and with the level of busyness that we have going on and with our lives, we're often in that external survival mode. And the more we can kind of train ourselves back in, and it starts with really sort of going within and finding out our wisdom from there. But as we carve out those pockets of time that we can do that, then eventually we will kind of train ourselves to embody more of that in our outside world, if you know what I mean. So just carving out those little pockets of time for now where we can do some kind of mindful work and connect with our inner selves is really useful. Okay, so the main points of today's podcast are that you are more than just a mother. So you are an individual, and we need to really be allowing ourselves to connect with all the different facets of ourselves, the complexities of ourselves, the good facets and the bad facets as well. We all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses, we all have our lighter sides and our shadow sides. Small consistent steps as well in either taking action or connecting with our inner world, which is maybe less action based, but taking small little baby steps can lead to like bigger changes in reconnecting with yourself, whatever that looks like for you. And again, just setting that intention is probably the most important thing, and giving yourself just that permission to grow and to evolve as a person. So thanks very much for listening or watching to this fortnight's episode. My challenge for you this fortnight is to take one step towards rediscovering yourself this week. So that, again, that could look like something practical, like I'm going to take 10 minutes at the end of every day to do a meditation and go within, or something else, just one little baby step. It might be looking at a new class, or it might be just kind of giving yourself that initial permission, that intention to do so, and maybe writing that down and writing a little bit more about what comes up for you in terms of, if you set that intention for yourself, do you then get that resistance coming up? Do you then get those thoughts pop into your head about why you can't do this? Maybe if you had a go at writing some of them thoughts down, and then you could kind of explore those thoughts and where they came from, and whether you really identify with them or not, or whether they're helping or harming you. But if you take one little step this week, what could you do to just to move towards that inner work? So if you have any ideas, I would love to know about them. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking about action steps or inner work steps that you could take, because I don't like saying the word action because it's not outwardly action orientated necessarily. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you are thinking about trying, if you have set that intention for yourself, if you have made any progress on finding your own identity. If you've got any tips to share with any other mums, then let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, you are welcome to join us on the network. So the easiest way to do that is to go to empoweredmothersnetwork.com, and there is a link, a button right on the homepage there where you can join the network, and you can subscribe to our fortnightly EMN journal, which is it gives you the latest podcast episode. And there's also things in there like events as well, and book recommendations, and all sorts of bits and bats. So if you want to join us, please subscribe to that and get the latest updates. Otherwise, I will see you for the next podcast episode.